Hello, good day, and welcome to this special edition of our program. Today we have in the studios none other than the Vice-Chancellor himself of the University of Guyana, Professor Ivelaw Griffith. Now, this gentleman here is the Vice-Chancellor and the Principal of the University of Guyana, which means that he runs the university in essence, makes all the key decisions there as to the future of the university. So, Professor Griffith, thank you.
Glad to be here. Delighted you can invite me and I can accept the invitation.
Thank you very much. Now, the University of Guyana was founded in 1963, as we all know, and it has had a little bit of turbulence, I would say, over the years. And you are the 10th Vice-Chancellor of the University of Guyana. Now, I know you want to fix things in a hurry, because they need to be fixed in a hurry. But if you were to do like 5 major things at the university, what would they be?
Well, let me begin, Dhanpaul, by thanking you for the invitation.
Thank you.
For being here, but as well, thank the many viewers who will be listening and who I know will become, if they are not already, friends of the University of Guyana. Some of them already are alums.
Yes.
Will become friends of the university. But let me also take this opportunity to commend the hundreds of lecturers, academic staff, the administrative staff at the university who've been laboring, some of them decades,
Yes.
enabling students, enabling postgraduate students to do the kind of learning necessary for our nation and to do the kind of research. Having said that, Dhanpaul, I think you and others are intimately aware of some of the many challenges.
That's correct.
And we have the opportunity at the University of Guyana of not having the luxury of doing one challenge fix and then a second challenge fix. We have the opportunity of doing the fixing of many things at the same time. So let me give you my first 5,
Right.
my top 5. You will have known that in the last 2 years, the University of Guyana School of Medicine has had some significant challenges, to the extent where in 2012 we lost accreditation.
Yes.
2013 actually we lost accreditation. One of my 5 top goals is to get the accreditation back. That accreditation is not only important for the medical school, for the students who will graduate to be able to work, practice medicine in many places in the region and beyond, but it is also significant as an indicator of the value added of the quality of the university as a whole. And so as we want to leverage university, we want to be sure that the medical school, which has had some credibility issues, some capability issues, that the medical school is among the other entities taken to a different place.
Yes.
So re-accreditation, restoring the accreditation is a top priority for me. Here's the second one. And I referred to it a little bit in talking about academic and non-academic staff who've been laboring in the educational vineyards. We do not pay our lecturers and our staff decently. It's just an abomination.
Yes, I agree with you.
And so one of my priorities, and today I had a team meeting, the wonders of technology. You can be in New York and you can speak
communicate
with your team
anywhere in the world.
in Guyana. And one of the things we spent about an hour and hour 10 minutes on was preparation for the next budget request going to the government. I'm not going to tell you the proportion that I recommended after discussion we put in our request, but we've got to begin to pay decent salaries and decent benefits to people who work in our educational enterprise. You will have gone recently as part of the conference to the campus.
That's right.
Both campuses.
That's right.
Turkine and Tain.
And Tain, I was there, yes.
And if you ask someone who went recently, what is your impression from the entry of the campus? It's not a good impression.
Especially
It's
the Turkine.
not a good impression, especially the Turkine campus.
That is correct.
And so cleaning up the environment is a top priority of mine. Enabling not only the people who work there on a daily basis, but people who visit should have a salubrious environment in which they come to do business. And that tells a lot about what the university thinks of itself and of its people, both the students and the faculty, the lecturers and the non-academic staff who help to do a lot of the work that is there. So that for me is number 3.
Beautification of
the campus.
Yes.
Number 4 has to do with students' engagement. I've had the good fortune of being an academic and an academic lead at several different universities around the United States. I know one of the things that works in terms of keeping students, of enabling them to have a very mature experience, and then graduating them with a kind of competitive advantage that can allow them to get the job if the workforce is where they're going, or get the best scholarships for postgraduate work. And so for me, a top priority, number 4, is establishing a student research program.
Very important.
Where students don't have to wait until their 4th year or their 3rd year, don't have to wait until they're postgraduate students for a master's or a PhD, begin to be excited about research, begin to feel that they may not want to go into the academy after work, but isn't it exciting to want to think of how you might have new knowledge, you can help produce new knowledge, you can enable discoveries to be made in small ways.
Yes. And those skills are
very, very valuable.
Yes.
And so we're going to launch this coming year an undergraduate research program.
Beautiful.
I've already told the colleagues on the campus we're going to join the premier institution on undergraduate research. It's called the Council on Undergraduate Research. I was a lead of that council for years when I was at Florida International University, and then I moved to York College. That is number 4. Here's number 5. Universities are good at doing what is called the hard skills, giving you the content, whether it's chemistry or English or history or engineering. What many universities are not good at, and I think our University of Guyana has an opportunity to become good at it, is enabling those students to have the soft skills. How to dress appropriately, how to conduct yourself at a dinner, an official dinner, how to shake somebody's hands, how to make eye contact. And so beginning this coming semester, I'm going to start every semester the fall, an etiquette dinner just for the student leaders, all the club leaders. I'm told that the Carnegie is the place that has the best experts on this. We'll hire the person from the Carnegie. We'll find a way, using some of the money given by friends and alums in my Vice-Chancellor's Strategic Initiatives Fund to fund that. And then in the spring, we're going to do dinner for a large group of students who are getting ready to end their journey of the baccalaureate or end their journey as the post-grad, whether master's or doctorate. Give them a chance to compete to be one of the 100 or 200 at the Vice-Chancellor's spring dinner. Again, it is social skills.
Yes.
How do you, it was kind of funny when I said it one time, how do you take the bread that is your bread at the dinner table and not somebody else's bread? How do you know which fork to use? Which glass is a wine glass, which glass is a water glass, which glass is the...
Yes, that requires some kind of skill.
Those kinds of soft skills. So those, Dhanpaul, would be my 5 topics.
You're going back to my grandmother days, really, at Fort Junoon.
Those were important.
Those are important.
Grandmothers know what we're talking about.
That's exactly absolutely correct. Now, Professor, you have alluded to some of the things I wanted to ask you in your reply to me. And that is, you're a person of immense experience internationally, running complex institutions, understanding the dynamics of how universities work. Tell us a little bit about your background.
I have the good fortune of having had a wonderful academic platform at the University of Guyana. I happen to have created a little history in 1980. When I graduated as the first person to graduate with a distinction. In the American context, we'd call it honors in political science.
Right.
I did so well that I was exempted from the first year of the UW Law School program. And I started the second year law program at UG. But then for a variety of reasons, I decided not to pursue, emigrated, and did my master's, finished a PhD, had the opportunity to serve in Georgia, in Florida, in New York, in a variety of roles. Had the opportunity to serve as not only a professor, but I was Dean of Budget and Facilities of the College of Arts and Sciences at Florida International University. And FIU now is, I think, the last statistic I saw, the nation's 7th largest university, over 57,000 students.
That's big.
When I left in 2006, there were about 43,000 students. It's grown immensely.
What's the population of UG as well?
UG is a little under 8,000.
Little under 8,000.
Little under 8,000.
Right. So, I mean, you have the experience of working, like I said, in very big organizations. And I want to commend you personally for the tremendous work you did at York College.
Thank you.
The City University of New York, where my son went to and graduated, as a matter of fact, and remembers you too. Because you were like one of the leading lights at York College, CUNY, in the heart of our immigrant community, the immigrant experience here. And I'm sure that must have left a big impression in you as an educator.
When I left in 2013 to go to Georgia to become president of Fort Valley State, I was invited back the next year for the 5th anniversary of one of the programs I started at York, and that is the undergraduate research program. Part of that program, and I'll do some of that at the University of Guyana, we had a research day where the students would make their presentations of their research, posters. It was just a fabulous display of excitement, of mentoring by the faculty. And I'm pleased to see that that program started now 8 years ago, still continues.
Beautiful.
What I started at Florida International University in, I think it was 2003 or 4, still exists. And so it's an opportunity to help to make a difference. And that is part of why I'm going back to Guyana. I've gone back to Guyana. Help to make a difference in an area which I've got some competence, some skills, and have some networking that I can enable to support.
Well, Professor, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, to tell you about myself, I mean, I'm not here to talk about myself. But I'm an alumni of the University of Guyana, class of 1972, and worked a little bit in New York City here in education. But I didn't have too much interest in the University of Guyana, wanting to go back and make a contribution until I heard about you. And my wife heard about you too, through my son at York, and said to me, you know, you're watching too much television here. Put away that remote control and go help Professor Griffith there.
That's a good wife. I got to meet you and thank her.
Yes. Go help Professor Griffith
there. Thank her for giving you the right kind of instructions.
And that's how I led to meeting with you, and it has been a fabulous meeting, a meeting of the minds and a kindred spirit and everything else. And you got not only me, but several people, over 50 persons, to leave the comfort of their living rooms and their televisions to travel to Guyana in June to have this wonderful conference, as well as ambassadors from Guyana itself. Now, how did that happen?
One of the realities of Guyana, and this is not unique to Guyana, is that so much of our brain power, so much of our capital, finance power, so much of our intellectual, cultural power is unfortunately outside of the homeland.
True.
And I have long followed universities in the developing country, including the Caribbean. I've been a consultant to several of them. And I know from way back that any effort to enhance what the University of Guyana does will have to call on other than government. Even a country that has the resources like a Trinidad and Tobago, the government cannot do for the National University all by itself.
Correct.
And so knowing that and having the extensive network of friendships, people who I've taught and mentored who are still good friends from decades, I decided that I had to have a demonstration of the power of linking home and abroad, focusing on university. I only wanted 20 folks.
That's what I heard.
20 from Guyana, 20 from outside. As a matter of fact, if you take a look at the first draft of what I put together something, I did it for the symposium as well, an implementation grid. What will happen once, first, second, who will do it and that. If you look at the first draft of the grid, it says, we're all going to sit around one table and have the conversation. Because I was getting for 40 people.
Right.
But as friends in different parts of the world, Europe, North America, Caribbean, and in Guyana itself, heard about it, he said, can I join? How come you didn't invite me? So 20 became 24, became 25, became 50. And that is true as well of in Guyana. And not only my network, but I asked people at the university, tell me who within the perimeters of Guyana we should invite. So a good 10 or 15 of the people who were there from Guyana, not my personal friends or my institutional networks, but the people recommended. And I'm delighted that they saw the wisdom of joining, because Guyana, no other Caribbean country can move ahead without investing in itself. And part of itself is in the diaspora.
Correct. Absolutely. I mean, there is so much brain power, capital, intellectual capital abroad. And so if you had to summarize this conference that we had, what would it be?
I would perhaps use 3 definitions of the success. I think the conference demonstrated the interests of the diaspora in wanting to give back. In wanting to give back in a nation where, unfortunately, we have a lot of deficits. We have an education deficit, not only at the university level, but at other levels as well. So that willingness to want to give back. And you can see it, because I said to each of the people, yourself included, I don't have money to pay for you to come.
True.
I need you to pay for your own way. I'm sure that the average cost, looking at everyone who came, must have been about $900.
Yes, that is exactly what it was.
One person came, several came from California, people came from Toronto, British Columbia, Edmonton, Jamaica, Grenada, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, and 12 different states within the United States.
Yeah.
So it is that wanting to give back, wanting to help. I think a second thing that the conference represented was a passion by the ambassadors there, a passion for education. Even folks there who did not attend the University of Guyana, some of whom are in the New York area support group, like Dr. Terrence Blackman, chairman of mathematics at Medgar College. He didn't go to University of Guyana, but his passion for education and his willingness to invest in my leadership allowed him to want to go and make that journey.
Yeah, he's a very good man. And Karen Wharton herself.
Absolutely. Didn't go to University of Guyana, but also. So I think that that passion was also demonstrated there. I think, and you saw the passion not only in the platitudes, but in the delivery of the practices.
Yes.
People put money.
Oh yes, people
pledged.
People put money, people pledged, and they made you very happy.
Made the whole university very happy,
so
made the students.
I want to make you happy here today, because I made a pledge there.
All right.
And I want to give it to you here today.
Good.
So here we go. That's my pledge.
So I want to thank you for $500, Dr. Dhanpaul Narayan. I know that over time, many more zeros will come behind the 5. Not in front of it,
That's right.
behind it. But this, for me, is another indication of the passion and the willingness to give back that we saw demonstrated.
That's right.
For those
It was like wildfire. I mean, people said it was incredible. Inside and outside.
Incredible.
So I want to thank you.
And I want to thank you for starting the ball rolling. Because after you did that, it just took off like wildfire.
That's right, absolutely.
It took off like
wildfire. You know, we had planned that the day before, myself, Alison, and Terrence, and Simone.
Good.
But we were shifted to the following day.
Right.
So once I got up there, I said, we got to make this thing happen.
Yep, and it happened.
Yes.
It happened big.
So I'm appealing to all of you. You saw we gave a donation here to the University of Guyana through this wonderful gentleman here, Professor Ivelaw Griffith, the Vice-Chancellor of the university. And I'm appealing to all of you watching here today, call the number on the screen. The number is on the screen, big there, 718-848-8831. And make a donation, make a pledge. And your money will be well spent, because this gentleman represents transparency and accountability.
Absolutely.
And that is what the University of Guyana is all about under his wise leadership.
Thank you.
Now, Professor, I've read some of your work, works, and you are big into security. What made you go into this field?
I had the fortune in, I think, 1980 or 1979. I was a journalist way back then, and I was covering the Commonwealth Heads of Missions Conference in Australia, Melbourne. And at that conference, there was a wonderful, hectic debate on the security of small states. Conversation revolved around Malta, Grenada, Vanuatu, the smallest states in the Commonwealth. And as I listened to that debate and as I covered it as a journalist, it occurred to me that not only did we have challenges in the Caribbean of a security nature, but that nobody had really done any work on it. And so I decided, once I became into the graduate, what is called in Guyana in the Caribbean, the postgraduate phase, that is an area that I will focus on. And I'll tell you, I was dissuaded by many people who say, Ivelaw, security, no, but they're not going to talk to you, you're not going to get information, what are you going to do? But persistence works.
Yes.
And so I was able to set the stage where you talk to every military officer in the Caribbean who has not read at least 2-3 of my books. I remember being once in Argentina. I've done a lot of work with the hemisphere, not just the Caribbean. And the OAS Hemispheric Security Committee asked me to go as part of a team to Buenos Aires. And after I spoke, the ambassador of Colombia to Argentina came to me and said, Professor Griffith, I never realized that bananas can be a security issue. But interestingly, at that conference, a colonel from Chile came to me and said, Professor, if I know you were here, I would have brought your copy of, I think it was my second book, which was required reading at the Chilean Military Academy.
And he probably wanted your autograph.
That's what he was saying. If he knew I was going to be there, he would have brought his copy.
Right.
Yeah. So I've had an opportunity to do some path-breaking work on security. And as I started working on the security of the Caribbean, I saw how the drugs issue was a clear and present danger on the security landscape. So I applied for some grants, got a major grant from the MacArthur Foundation, which enabled me to write a book, which I still get royalties from. Came out in 1997, I think. Drugs and Security, Sovereignty on the Siege. And so I was very pleased to have made a contribution in the scholarly enterprise, not only in regard to the Caribbean. I was telling the ambassador of Argentina to Guyana last week that there was a time when every year a group of us from a Spanish organization called IRELA would go to different parts of Latin America. My wife would say, where are you guys going now? And saying the same thing you said in Paraguay, you're going to say it in Colombia, you're going to say it. But it was an opportunity to enable people in Southern Cone to understand what are some of the trials and tribulations faced in the Caribbean. I'm very pleased to have written 7 books, over 50 journal articles, and a lot of testimony.
That's amazing. That's an amazing output. And we want to congratulate you for being one of the big top scholars produced by the University of Guyana.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yes, this is an amazing experience. So, Professor, if you had to name 3 people who really impacted your life, who would it be?
I was telling someone in Guyana last week that I initially was not interested in becoming, my career path did not envisage scholarship, teaching and writing and researching. I wanted to be an international lawyer. And I'll tell you who my heroes were. I wanted to be Mohammed Shahabuddin.
He was a
or Sridhar Ramphal.
Brilliant people, yeah.
And so there were people who influenced me, some of whom I only met en passant, like Sridhar, like Mohammed Shahabuddin. So those would be people who influenced me. I'll tell you somebody who influenced me also. In primary school, Miss Cecilia Imhoff. It is such an interesting way in which the world and the Lord works. Miss Imhoff, one of her daughters, I helped to get into medical school. She's now a medical practitioner in Guyana, has been for years. Another of her daughters, who I did not know at the time was her daughter, became a good friend when I was at Fort Valley State University as president. She still is a very senior position at the Commonwealth Secretariat in London, has been a major asset. She will be helping the University of Guyana.
Wonderful.
To that organization.
Beautiful.
So Ms. Imhoff in primary school and Ms. Dunbar in high school.
Dunbar, yeah.
Ms. Dunbar taught Latin and math. You could not speak French in Ms. Dunbar's class. But she had this thing that you're always talking in another language because you're talking about her.
So you have to speak her language.
Speak English or speak Latin. But then when I got to the University of Guyana, Paul Singh, and I was passing Lemaha Street last week too, and I was saying to my driver,
History of political thought.
Right. I said,
Yes.
Paul used to live in this house. I remember the place where Paul lived. Paul Singh, Perry Mars, Harold Lutchman, Rudy James are some of the people who helped to shape my thinking at the University of Guyana. And then there are a number of other people.
Right.
When I came to the United States, Tony Mengo, for one, from Florida International University, was significant.
Right.
Richard Millett, who is in Illinois, significant contributor.
Jorge
Dominguez at Harvard, significant influence and mentor. So a lot of mentoring by people not from the Caribbean, from and not from Europe.
Wonderful. One of my big influences, it's very funny indeed, and is a man called C.V. Nunes, who was my very first headmaster, and who
he became a minister, wasn't he?
Yes, he founded the University of Guyana. He signed the papers. It was Jagan's government, but he signed the papers. Right. I happened to meet him in England many, many years later. And of course, he couldn't remember me, but I embraced him, hugged him, and it was the most amazing meeting, really. Wonderful.
I mentioned him in a speech I gave, the graduation speech at University of Guyana in 2013. And I mentioned him as one of the people who led to the origins, at the beginnings.
That's very true.
Of the university.
And he was telling me the whole story, how it happened. And they were fighting the clock, so to speak, because the Legislative Assembly was coming to an end.
Right.
Had to get the work in. But this is an amazing thing. Now, Professor, now, this appointment of yours is for 3 years, as I understand it. Now, at the end of 3 years, what do you hope to achieve?
I want to have achieved a number of fairly specific things, but also some fairly non-specific things. There'll be some of the specifics first. And I've mentioned some of those specifics in the context of my goals, top priorities. At the end of my term, we shall have had a more well-founded medical and health enterprise. And I'm not talking only about the School of Medicine getting its reaccreditation. I was talking today to a friend in Ohio, and I was saying to him, my next project of ambassadorial engagement would be to bring Guyanese from the diaspora and Guyanese at home to look at the health sciences at the university. And so I'd like, by the end of my first 3 years, to have had a more solid foundation, more credibility, both on the teaching, the delivery of services, and the research. Medical schools, and I've had the pleasure of being at universities with medical schools, Florida International being one of them. Medical schools have a tendency to produce incredible grant for research. We're not there. We need to get there. So it's the medical school, it's public health, it's optometry, it's dentistry. Need to have that lifted to a higher level. But I think it's also important for us at the end of the first 3 years to see the improvement in the delivery of services, academic and non-academic. We have too many archaic rules that really are preventing the modernity. We have to reform both the governance. No changes since 1963 in the overall legislative architecture. We got to modify.
You have to modify it. It's about time.
Yeah.
It's about time.
And so many people at Ambassadors Conference worry about whether or not I'll be allowed to do the kinds of things needed because the system is so archaic, complicated. For example, I asked, why do we still have to have all these written notices? We have email. Every meeting produces all these written. Send an email, save the paper.
That's right.
Why can't we use Skype and teleconference and email for some meetings?
That's right.
Why aren't we able to leverage the technology to do more? And so getting the change in the architecture, both the superstructure and the substructure, to enable more efficiency in the services. You walk across campus, I was asking last week, do we have energy saving bulbs here? Person was puzzled.
Right.
We'll change all that.
Yes.
It is bringing ourselves into where the society is heading on greening, ecologically friendly, but it also saves money.
Yes.
But I'm hoping that in the first 3 years, I'll be able to set the stage for greater things. And I'll tell you one of those greater things. Our university needs a school of business.
Badly.
And so I plan to bring a team, be headed by a dean from a business school, reputable business school in Georgia. It will comprise people who are in the business field, Guyanese and non-Guyanese in Washington, D.C., a business dean from the UE system, a business dean from right in New York from the CUNY system, not York, not a CUNY system, not a CUNY school. And then local folks from the university, from the business community to figure out how do we have, and I'm calling it a school of entrepreneurship and business innovation. And I'm asking them to look at particular things. I need you to look at small business enterprise. Too many Guyanese have missed opportunities. I stayed several times in different hotels in the last 3 years in Guyana. And every time in each of those places I ask for tea. They bring me either Lipton or they bring me Jamaican tea. I said, this is a country with a lot of bush.
That's right.
Why don't we have well-packaged lemongrass, mint,
Tangerine leaf.
Conga pump, Tojo. So I'll be asking the business school feasibility team to look at small enterprise. How do people become, if you're ready as a small businessman, how do you have a credible next level to which you can rise? We need to do differently and better than we're doing now at the University of Guyana in regard to tourism studies. Want to put that on the agenda. Want to put in the agenda as well, Dhanpaul, the cultural industry. We got a lot of writers, musicians, artists who are just struggling. They need to learn the business side to keep sanity. But it also means changing the culture of some of our Guyanese folks who think because you're a performer, you should do it for free. You got to pay. And you pay the guy who comes from abroad, why not pay the local Guyanese artists? So I envisage that by the time I will have left, whether 3 years or 6 years.
6. Or more.
We would have set the foundation for some things. I'll tell you one other thing that I'm going to start next year. Our nation has a credible, strong gold industry. It needs to be better. President Granger, I think quite rightly, has expressed consternation at the amount of people who were killed. So we have a lot of work to do on safety, on the environment. But in addition to that industry, in the minerals area, we're thinking of oil for the nation.
Right. I read today, it's massive, massive.
So the University of Guyana cannot afford not to be thinking, how can we train people for the 3-4 years down the line?
Petroleum industry.
So I plan to bring a team to do a feasibility study, just as I'm going to bring a team to do the business school study on what I call now School of Energy and Mines. And I mentioned at an investment conference right in Manhattan a few weeks ago, and someone from Exxon was in the audience, I'll be looking for an investment in companies in those enterprises. Naming of the school, naming of departments, naming of professorships. And so I'm hoping that by the time my first term ends, the platform for some of those growth opportunities, leveraging innovation and leveraging opportunities beyond where we are.
Well, it's what you're saying is very exciting. I mean, absolutely exciting. Now, one quick suggestion. Now, would you bring every summer, because a lot of people In New York, they have the summers off. There are educators, people in different disciplines, as you saw from the Education Resource Conference. Perhaps to do a 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, as their time would allow, in their respective areas for students at UG.
Well, let me give you two kinds of responses to that. And I'll preface the responses by saying one of the things that the University of Guyana and other elements of our nation has as a challenge is absorptive capacity. So if you bring all those people, can you meaningfully occupy their skills and talents? And part of that absorptive capacity is when you bring them, you should be providing, as I think I would want to provide, housing for them. You can't ask people to pay their own way in some cases and take their time and talent and come and you got to find. So we've got to be able to have the systems in place to do that. Having said that, I will say two things. Summer, for sure, we will have the need for some skills, but we would need to look and see throughout the academic year, where might we need those skills? And those skills might be needed more in the semester one, as we call it, the fall in the United States. And sometimes they don't have to be the utilization of those skills by people coming home. How can we use the technology to do it for online course teaching? How can we do hybrid? So yes, we would be able to use some in the summer, but I think fewer in the summer than in the fall and the spring. And again, it doesn't have to be only by people coming down. But let me tell you a second thing. There are needs at our university for areas other than teaching. The first of the 3-part symposia for the Golden Jubilee at the Arthur Chung Conference, and I was making that point in relation to one of the areas I'll be emphasizing, research. And I said, we at the University of Guyana cannot be asking the lecturers, the academic staff, to be doing more research unless we support and provide the things for them to do. And one of those things, which we don't have right now, which we'll have to have, is a pre-awards office. So if a professor wants to do a project on biochemistry or history or engineering, may have an idea of where the grants are available, he should not have to be an expert in how to put the proposal together. A pre-awards office would do that. And in the audience was someone who came to me and he said, Vice-Chancellor, I want to help in that way. I was a pre-awards officer at Howard University.
Look at that. That's amazing.
So there are skills that we need that are not teaching. It is administrative, it is policy, and so we can leverage some of those skills in summer, out of summer, in teaching, outside of teaching.
Now, one of the things that really impressed me and many people in my circle is the fact that you would like to have these lectures of excellence, as you call it, honoring Sister Noel Moniz, who happened to be my teacher and whom I met recently. Dr. Clive Thomas, international luminary, Dr. Ulrich Trotz, a wonderful scientist, and also filling the Walter Rodney Chair. These are very innovative, creative things. And people might say, well, it's so simple, why didn't we think of it? But you thought of it, and you're going to do it. Now, Sister Minnie's, is there a timeline for that one?
Before I answer that specific one, let me share with your viewers what my thinking is. Any university that is a credible university has to be able to do, among other things, lift the icons of the enterprise. It has to be able to create in younger students or in students who are not even at the university level that desire to want to be like. You shouldn't want to only be like an athlete and a musician. You should want to be like a scientist, like a great writer. And so I think one of the things our university has not done in recent times is to celebrate, lift, showcase those individuals. And for me, especially since each of the 3 people, each of the 4 people, and Walter Rodney, there was long before I came on the scene, there were plans, but never actualized. Each of those people has been celebrated beyond Guyana in so many ways. So in many respects, we are just correcting an injustice that a university should have corrected a long time. And so celebrating someone like CY in the social sciences, who is not only an economist, CY will tell you that he started chemistry. He's written a lot about the sugar industry, about sugar, the chemical aspects of it, and linking the economics. So celebrating him in the social sciences, celebrating Sister Benese in the humanities, celebrating Ulrich Trotz in the sciences, and I already have a commitment to the funding for Ulrich Trotz.
Very good.
And from someone who is not an alum, but who said to me, Ulrich Trotz is who turned him on to chemistry at QC.
Look at that. Amazing.
But some of these colleagues are up there in chronology. Sister Benese is one of those and not doing too well, as you were able to go and visit her in one of her better days. And so I'd like to see each of those 3 distinguished lectures happen in the fall, this semester 1.
Very good.
And we're going to probably push out of the gate first Trotz and Benese. I'd like her to be able to come and witness, at least be in the presence
She would love that.
Of the first.
Yes.
And I'm going to make it that every semester we bring in someone who is a distinguished person in that field to speak to a subject, in her case in history. And not only speak to it and end it, I want to be able to have whatever the written product is published.
Yes.
We'll do a video recording of the public lecture, so have that as an available asset as well. We've got to find a way to tangibly celebrate. And that for me is stage 1. Stage 2 is having an endowed chair.
Yes.
That takes raising money. I already have a partial commitment for the person who is going to fund the Ulrich Trotz. But we've got to build the support and build the funding for C.Y. Thomas and for Sister.
And Perry Morris.
And Perry Morris.
Perry Morris. Now, you're watching us here. We're chatting with the illustrious Vice-Chancellor and Principal of the University of Guyana. He's an alumni. I'm an alumni. Wonderful place the University of Guyana is, and it's going to go back to its glory days under this distinguished gentleman here, and we'd like you to make a contribution. Call the number on the screen, 718-848-8831, which is my number actually, and make a pledge, make a contribution, and let University of Guyana return to the glory days it once was. And under his leadership, his pilotship, the university will move on from strength to strength and become one of the world-class institutions in the world, as a matter of fact, not only the Caribbean. And Professor Griffith is a gentleman here who is an international scholar. You've heard him. And I have total confidence in his ability with his team, because it was teamwork, to transform the University of Guyana into a wonderful institution indeed. It's already a wonderful place. Lots of people are working hard there, day in and day out, doing their best. But we need a makeover, and you're the gentleman. Yes. You're the gentleman who is.
You got to make over, make around, make under, make a lot of things.
Make a lot of things, and you're the guy who is going to help to make this possible, indeed. Now, Professor, what are your hobbies?
One of the things when we lived in Florida was a routine when I was in Florida, is the family would go play tennis in the mornings, and then we would go to TGIF or one of those food places. And sometimes my son and I would go by ourselves, and as soon as I returned, I would declare to my wife, honey, as a good father, I allow my son to win this game again.
I do that myself too.
And when we were in Georgia, my son came down, my son-in-law came down, and I had the same opportunity to let my son-in-law and my son win. But tennis, as a matter of fact, when I'm going back to Guyana this weekend, and I'll be sure I have to get new tennis rackets and some balls to play down there. Tennis is what I play.
Cricket?
Not a big on cricket. I love the game, but never played it much. I was telling some folks on Monday that one of the most hilarious cricket matches I've experienced, observed, was in Florida. A lot of cricket played in Florida. And they used to be in Fort Lauderdale, these over 40 matches. It's hilarious to see men over 40 cannot pick up the ball. They become what I have learned in Guyana are bobs,
Yes.
belly over belts. And so trying to pick up the ball after is a challenge. But part of what I have made known at the University of Guyana is that enabling the students to have a quality education requires also the co-curricula.
Mm-hmm.
I met 2 days ago with assistant registrar in charge of student welfare. Talk about the clubs. What clubs do we have? How do we need to do differently with them? How might we strengthen them? I'll be doing a number of innovative things with some of the student clubs. We've got to allow the students, which is one of the sad realities to the efficiency of the University of Guyana. There is no club, there's no student space, there's no canteen, there's no staff space. So we've got to find a way to address that. And so whether it's a fraternity or a sorority or a student club, whatever activity culturally, we've got to ensure that students have not only the book work, but that important co-curricular work that helps to shape you and help you to do.
This is diverse societies.
Absolutely.
Yes, when I was there as well.
Yeah.
So that's a beautiful thing that you're going to do there, to have total involvement in student activities there as well.
And some of these activities, people are coming forward to volunteer. People who are in Guyana, people who are in the diaspora, who want to come back periodically to give back. Volunteer to be mentored, volunteer to be coaches, volunteer to help the important co-curricular enterprise to be raised to a different level.
Now, Professor, I see that you love to wear the bow tie. What made you decide on this choice? Because mine is pretty long.
You know, it's said that sometimes men go through a mid-age crisis. Some change their wives. I'm not doing that. Some buy fancy cars. I'm too poor to do that. And I just had an epiphany. I'll change my look. And so I started wearing bow ties regularly about 3 or 4 years ago. As a matter of fact, right at York, the first time I wore it, it was the day of one of the fall convocations. Several people came to me, "Provost, are you okay? Is everything okay?" And one person said to me as we were walking over to the Performing Arts Center, she said, "Provost, no one is going to pay attention to anything happening in this convocation. Everybody's going to be worried about what is it the provost is wearing and what is happening."
Right.
And she was right. President Keyes told me afterwards, "Ivelaw, you created a stir by having this bow tie." Now, several people at York have also adopted the bow tie.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm going to try one eventually too.
As a matter of fact, when I was in Guyana for the Golden Jubilee, someone gave me a wonderful bow tie made of the Guyana colors.
Oh, yeah, I saw you wear that.
I wore it at the third symposium.
Yes.
So I said to this person, "I'm going to commission some UG bow ties to give as gifts, to sell."
And that brings us to branding the university.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, you've been to many universities yourself. I've been to 1 or 2. And there's a bookshop. There's a shop just for paraphernalia where you buy everything. Hats, cups, mugs, bow ties, blazers, scarves, t-shirts, you name it.
Whole host of stuff.
Yes. No, we have to have that.
We have to. And I'm delighted that you, as a leader in the New York area support group, is going to be helping. You are going to be helping to launch that enterprise. And we're going to be doing, I've already commissioned a small group led by Professor Philbert Gajadar at the University of Guyana. And I said, "Philbert, put together a little team. Let's design some paraphernalia, scarves, hats, bow ties, cups. Not only for use on campus. You should be able to buy at the airport.
Yes.
You should be able to buy in town at the stores. You should be able to buy in New York and other places where Guyanese diaspora exists. And that is not only an economic venture, it's a branding venture.
Yes.
It's part of helping us to have a sense of ownership, pride in the university. So I've got that as an important branding. I have a little team, and I met with them on Tuesday morning, led by distinguished Guyanese musician and linguist, Professor Jocelyn Lunk.
Oh, yeah, she's amazing.
I said to her, "I would love for you to head a competition for a UG song, an alma mater." I'd love to have it premiered this November at graduation. This coming November is our 50th UG graduation.
That's historic.
It's a big thing.
Yes.
I want to make it a big
Yes.
deal. And I have a small team, Ms. Patricia Backus, Mr. Danny Ainsworth, and a member of the alum in Canada, Ms. Hazel Marshall, working to put together a homecoming as part of the celebrations for our 50th. And I want to make the homecoming a regular annual thing. For alum, whether in Guyana, out of the Guyana, come back.
Yes.
Find a way to celebrate with the students
Yes.
who are graduating and see what has changed.
Share your knowledge, your
Share
experience.
your
When I was
experience.
there in 72, this is what happened. It's a beautiful thing.
Reconnecting.
Yes.
So the branding, as you quite rightly identified, is an important part.
Yes.
And the branding is as important to the identity as it is important to the credibility.
Absolutely. I mean, if you wear a UG hat, it has a website under. That's advertising the university. People go on the website.
And it says something about your willingness to put on that hat.
Yes,
Or
absolutely.
willingness to put on the t-shirt. It says something about you and the institution. Even if somebody gave it to you for free, you don't have to wear it.
Right,
So your choice to wear it says something about what you think about
right. And especially in North America, these shawl, UG. Scarf, shawl.
We're going to make a variety
UG color, yes.
of paraphernalia.
Yeah, absolutely. And we
Several
will,
different parts.
the New York support group will help you as much as we possibly
Appreciate
can. And, you know, we have a dynamic group over here. Just let me acknowledge them. Dr. Terence Blackman, Karen Wharton, Alison Skeet, Edward
Mertens, George.
yes, Simone Alexander.
And I've drafted Alison's husband, Michael.
Okay.
Michael Skeet and Simone Alexander.
Wonderful,
From New Jersey.
wonderful indeed. And Naro Bali, my friend who went with me all the way, because he believed in you, he went all the way there to have this done. So it's going to be a wonderful.
And thank you for recommending Chunilao.
Yes, Pandit Chunila,
Pandit
who
Chunilao.
is helping out with the song as well.
Right.
So, Professor, this has been a wonderful hour. It's
I want to thank you
time
for it.
flew. Anything, any last minute statements you'd like to
Let me
make?
make 3 observations by way of closure. The first of which is to thank you.
Thank
And
you.
To thank our
Rakesh.
viewers.
Yes.
To thank our producer, Rakesh,
Yes.
videographer and producer. But I also want to invite people who are viewing and people who may know people. If you're viewing and you know somebody, alum or interested in University of Guyana, this is a time to contribute to the Renaissance. And I'm looking for my 3 T's. Looking for people's treasure, looking for people's talent, looking for people's time. And some people have all 3, some people have 1. You may have treasure, but only $10. That's just as important to me as treasure $1,000. The $10 investment may grow to the $100 investment. So I want to thank anyone who wants to invest and lend us any of those 3 T's. I like people to know that I take seriously accountability and transparency. So I've already said to the bursar, we've got to have integrity in our systems so that people who give, irrespective of how much they give, can be assured that the money will be spent wisely and that there will be an accounting for it at the end of the day. And that is something that is quite important. Let me finally say, Dhanpaul, that our university has produced thousands of people around this world. I was saying to a friend in London a couple of weeks by text that I'm sure Antarctica is one of the few places there may not be 5 Guyanese, but I'm sure there's 1.
Of course.
I want this Renaissance to be a Renaissance that brings the alums from wherever they are around the world to find a way to contribute to raising the bar at our university. We may not have had the optimal conditions in the 70s and the 80s when we were there, but the conditions are even worse since that time. We have an obligation. I'm making an incredible sacrifice in going back and doing. Others want to make that sacrifice. It doesn't have to be a sacrifice only by going back, but giving back is what is important. I want to thank people for giving back.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Professor, is like you said, that you are making a really incredible sacrifice, giving up so much stuff to go back there and to help to raise the bar, lift the standards, lift the university from what it is at the present time. And there is so much love for the University of Guyana out there, from all the alums, their families and friends and everyone else in the region, people, UGs all over the place.
Absolutely.
We have to bring it back to what it was. And with your leadership, sir, and the support that you will get from so many people, including myself, I'm sure that after 6 years, in the first in the first instance,
I'll have to talk to my wife about after the first 3 years and see what she decided.
in the first instance after 6 years, which is renewable, of course, that we will see the University of Guyana as one of the leading institutions in the Caribbean, and in fact the world, with its publication, research, and the 3 T's, giving back. And so we want to thank you for being in the studios here today. And it's been a wonderful hour here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And do call the number on the screen, give a pledge, make a donation to the University of Guyana. And Professor, I know that you answer every one of those emails.
Yeah. Right. Well, let me say this on pledges.
Yes.
If you're going to pledge, you have to honor your pledge. You're not interested in people who are just for the show,
Right.
want to massage your egos or tell your friend. If you don't have it, don't pledge it.
Right.
If you pledge it, honor it.
Right. Like I did just now.
Like you did.
Yes.
Thank you much, Dhanpaul.
Thank you very much,
All
sir.
right.
All right. All the best. Thank you.